Hello, so this is going to be a second attempt at doing a video on the Austrian 1886 Mannlicher rifle. So I did a video on it yesterday and sadly for some reason YouTube deleted it. It wasn't actually a strike, but basically they said you broke our firearms policy on YouTube, so you can appeal it or, you can delete it. So I've deleted it and I'm redoing it, and I'm making sure this time the video is so sanitized that it can't possibly break any of YouTube's firearm policy rules. So I can't tell you where I bought it from or anything like that. There also won't be any links whatsoever in the description, in case people think they're links where you can buy this gun or something. So this is a UK legal obsolete caliber firearm. Basically what that means is it uses a cartridge that is so out of production today that basically there's no risk of people really getting it and shooting it at a big degree. So this was basically Austria's rifle just before World War One. So in World War One, I believe it was the 1895 Mannlicher they used, which is basically sort of an upgraded version of this. I think the cartridge was a bit more improved, might have been slightly different dimensions. There was a few changes to it, but fundamentally it was this gun. So what I will point out with this gun is the magazine there is one of those strange magazines that's actually for sort of using on-block clips or whatever they're called. So it's a bit like the Grand sort of clip system. The idea is that you load a clip in and then you eject it once you've shot all the rounds through the clip, as opposed to, using a clip to quickly load the magazine and then the magazine feeds the rifle. So what I will do in a moment is I will also get out my Obsolete Calibre Schmidt-Rubin from Switzerland from a similar time period, and I'll put it next to it because I believe the Swiss Schmidt-Rubin is actually a superior firearm. And then you can have a look at both of them side by side, because the Schmidt-Rubin actually has like a regular functional magazine, a bit like an SMLE, which is pretty cool. So what I will say is the price I bought this in and the condition it was advertised as, it exceeded my expectations, which is very nice. So there's all that. So without further ado, let me get a different angle and let me put the Schmidt-Rubin next to it. Right, so here we go. I'm going to pan the camera forward. So on the top or the left is the Mannlicher 1886, and on the right is the 1889 Schmidt-Rubin. So the top left one is Austrian, the bottom right one is Swiss. So they're basically from the same time period. Now the reason I'd say the Swiss version is superior, I know they're not the same rifle, but rifles are very similar time and comparison, is they both have very similar sights. The bolt, I would say, is easier to move on the Rubin. I just think it's a better bolt system. Although there's nothing wrong with the Mannlicher's bolt, it's pretty sturdy. But as I said, the magazines are pretty major differences. So if I just zoom in on there, you can't really see from this angle, but basically the Rubin has a proper, what is almost quite a modern magazine. You load the magazine up with cartridges, a spring in it loads them each up into the receiver. Each time the bolts move forwards, it picks up a round. Whereas the Mannlicher, as I said, is designed to be used with a special type of clip inside of its magazine. So basically, the Rubin, if you've got the cartridges, you can just load it in and it's ready to go. With the Mannlicher, you basically need, the special cartridges for it. So, with the bolts, the Swiss one has that sort of almost like beer keg looking bolt, which is quite nice, although those don't age as well, where obviously you can see on the Austrian one, it's just literally a metal ball and they age better. The interesting thing is the bolt is actually a lot more enclosed, which protects it on the Austrian rifle, because you can probably see there on my Mannlicher that's been damaged over time, where basically that metal after a couple of impacts has basically broken there. The bolt still works, but essentially it means that you can pull the bolt back and lock it that way. On the Schmidt-Rubin, but on the Austrian one, you can't do that, but it's also enclosed so it won't catch on anything. Both are pretty much identical in length. Both of them have can have a bayonet attached. On the Rubin, the bayonet attaches below there, as you can see, where the little catch is for it. I don't have the bayonets for either of these. With this one, the bayonet goes on the other side of it. I believe the bit on the bottom there of each of them it's not a cleaning rod. I believe on both of those that's either a bayonet or a sword trap. As in, so if somebody thrusts the bayonet at you, you can catch it between the rifle and that little trap to help disarm the person, that's attacking and hopefully save your life. Both of these have been very competent rifles, don't get me wrong. It's also very interesting to look at pre-World War I rifles, just simply due to the fact that, it's kind of interesting that often most nations stuck with these kind of designs and just kept modernising them, They made them shorter so it was easier to carry them. The cartridges got more, efficient in terms of energy. So basically, what that meant was the gun had to be made stronger, but for the most part, you know, the designs didn't change much. But these are full-on proper cartridge rifles as compared to, you know, muskets. The idea being that, you know, you simply charge the bolt to cycle it and keep feeding in rounds, and, you know, there's no primers that you need to load or anything beforehand. You've got a self-assembled cartridge you load in that's ready to shoot like a modern firearm. Obviously the cartridges, if you see pictures of the old ones, are pretty primitive looking. The bullet is very big compared to the casing, because, you know, these couldn't handle super high velocity, you know, high pressure ammunition. But in terms of functionality, yes, these are basically what you'd expect from World War I, World War II rifles, just a lot chunkier, you know, much bigger. So, you know, there's a good comparison. What I will quickly do before I finish the video is I will just put the Austrian rifle next to my deactivated World War I, World War II Lee Enfield. Is it a number 1 Mark III, I believe? And that way you'll actually be able to see sort of just how, even by the time of World War I, sort of rifle design, these have got smaller. Okay, so I've managed to actually fit them all in frame. So as you can see, the Enfield is at the bottom there, and you can see even by a World War I length Lee Enfield, if we just to prove that, you know, the butts are in roughly the same place, could actually probably move that back even further. As you can see from those, the bolts are in roughly the same place on all of them. The magazines are in roughly the same place, but when you go forwards, you'll see that the barrel is much shorter on the Lee Enfield. You'll see they also did away with those sort of sword trap designs. And what you'll actually see is that the rifles after this Lee Enfield got shorter as well. You know, the idea was with basically bolt actions that you could go for far more of a carbine design. So, there you go. That gives you an idea kind of like of the difference between a pre-World War I rifle, which hadn't changed all that much by the time of World War I, to what they look like in World War I, sort of start of World War II, you know, with a few improvements made there. Obviously before we had battle rifles and assault rifles, you know, these sort of mass-produced bolt actions that were very sturdy and handy. So there you go, just to show you there. That's the Lee Enfield's bayonet, and again the other rifles have had bayonets of similar sizes, but they had different bayonet catches, you know, so I can't put the Lee Enfield bayonet on there. And again, over time bayonets got smaller and more compact, more like fighting knives or tools, rather than being essentially little short swords that went on your rifle. But as you can see there, you know, as I said, the Schmidt-Rubin is closer to the Lee Enfield in terms of modernity, but, you know, how the magazine works and everything, but overall, you know, hopefully that gives you a good idea. And now hopefully this video has been totally YouTube compliant in terms of not breaking any rules regarding their firearms policy, which is quite vague.